Hi, I'm Jana. Every week I create videos and resources that help humanitarian and development workers do data collection, analysis, and reporting just a little bit better. So this week what we're going to be talking about is working with color, especially working with your branding colors, your organization's like logo colors or brand identity, to bring those into your data visualization. So whether you're creating maps, bar charts, pie charts, PowerPoint presentations, anything like that, whether you're creating a dashboard or we do lots of stuff with data visualization, don't we? So how do we actually combine our visualization with our branding colors, okay, from your organization to create professional analysis, to kind of present it professionally so that it all seamlessly flows together and looks really good when you kind of present it in whatever format you're presenting it to. So what I've done is I've created a downloadable template for you. So I'm going to show you that right now. So you can just go to this website and I'll put the link in the show notes below. So you can just click on the link right in the video. And it will just allow you to put your email address, your name, sign up for the download, and also for the weekly emailing list where I share these kinds of things every week right to your inbox. And then just tap on this big red button below and you'll get a download. And this is what the download looks like. We're going to be going into it more, so I won't go into it right now, but that would be great. And before we go any further, just one little note, what I would love you to do is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. So if you're on my YouTube channel, just click this button, subscribe. And then if you click this little bell here, very crazy, and click all, you'll get updated anytime I create a new video, which is at least once weekly. So let's dive right in. This is just a very simplified version of a data system or a data management or information management cycle. So what I like to say is you start with data collection, then you analyze it, then you visualize it and report it. And hopefully your report and the feedback you get on your report will actually help you collect data a little bit better. You'll know what you're missing, you'll know what you need to improve on. So that's why it's kind of a cycle or a system. What we want to focus on, especially today, is visualizing and even going into reporting, but mostly visualizing, and how we actually use color in our visuals. Now, one of the tips for data visualization is to really simplify the colors you use. If you use a lot of different colors for your data, then it gets overwhelming for the reader and they can miss kind of the important points in your data. Most of the time when I'm creating a report, I actually only ever use one color, sometimes maybe two, but I've just created kind of a fake report just to kind of show you. But this is the kind of thing that I would do, or I usually do when I create my reports. I just use a single kind of color scheme and just use tints and shades of that color. It simplifies it, it just makes it look quite professional, and it's very cohesive as you kind of scroll up and down through the report. So I'd recommend that as you're doing reports, just take a look at them. Do you use a lot of different colors? Do you use very consistent colors? Is there a way you can actually use color to bring cohesiveness to the way you present your visuals? Now, a second tip, a lot of organizations have some sort of branding color or like a brand identity document, but they have a certain palette of colors that they like to use. I just pulled up a couple for you to take a peek at. This one was an Oxfam digital guidelines, just found it on Google, so I'm not showing anything proprietary here, but this is what I found for Oxfam. This is their primary color palette. I found Save the Children. This was what their primary color palette was, red and black. But then they have the secondary color palette. And then I found a UNICEF one online. So they obviously the UN blue, which everybody knows. But then they have this, secondary color palette. They even have a second page down here with loads more colors. So lots of different organizations have lots of different colors. And I think if you can really bring in your organization's color palette to your to your visualization. So when you create a map, or when you create bar charts or pie charts to put in a report, or when you create a presentation, use that palette. And this doesn't have to be anything fancy. Maybe you're just a small organization. You don't maybe even have a brand identity package or a palette. What I just did is I created a very simple one for my own. So here's a look. This is just what I did. I picked 5 colors, and these are the colors that I use for humanitarian data solutions over and over and over again. And you can just see the red, green, blue, so RGB value, and the hex value for each of those. And I just pull that up whenever I'm creating visuals for myself, and I just use that over and over and over again. So it doesn't have to be difficult. If you don't have one, maybe think about creating one, but a lot of organizations do, where they have a logo that has those brand colors. So just to take you give you a quick peek into different ways to use your brand colors when you're creating visuals. So here you can see that I've actually used my brand colors to create 3 donut charts, or they're kind of like pie charts, but they don't have a middle in them, so they call them donut charts. So I've created 3 donut charts, which actually use just different colors of my branding color palette. But I can also choose to just take a single color from my palette and take tints and shades of that color, and also create a more unified look throughout this. So again, that's what I kind of tend to do in my reports. I just want to use a single color and use kind of shades and tints. Or you could even do, on a dashboard, I like to do this, is where I want to use a little bit more color. I want it to look a little bit more interactive, maybe a bit brighter, and draw people's attention in different places on a dashboard. So I might choose to kind of take a different color for each indicator. So this one for urban and rural context, this one for male-female split, this one for kind of the education split. So I might want to have different colors just to draw people's attention in different ways if they're looking at, say, a dashboard. So there are kind of different ways that you can create color palettes and color your visuals based on kind of whatever your brand identity is. But here was the thing that I was running into, is I was always, I could kind of always see my brand identity, but I didn't have these tints and shades kind of quickly at my fingertips. So what I created was just this color palette maker, where what I did is I put the RGB values of the main colors in the color palette up here, and it kind of will then just show me what do those colors look like. And then down here it automatically shifts the RGB values by these percentages over here, shades and tints. So shades just means we're adding black to the color. Tints means we're adding white to the color. Okay, so that's where we get darker and lighter. And then 100% just means that these are the colors that you actually entered up here. And then how do I then kind of bring those RGB values into whatever else I'm creating? So this is actually a map, and another example of when you would want to take maybe one color and use shades and tints. We often have something called a color ramp. So in this instance, I've got ACAPS data in here for humanitarian crises that are very high severity, which are the darkest red, and high severity, which are kind of then the lighter red. So you might want to use kind of tints and shades of the same color just to make your map again look quite cohesive, so you don't have different colors going on all over the place, because it's these are both still red. There's still both representing humanitarian crises. It's just varying shades for kind of the severity of the crisis. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with this template. So let me show you how it works. If I just change this to kind of a more extreme color, you can see that it changed the color here, and then it updated the colors down here, and it changed all these RGB values here. So for example, if we go back to this UNICEF color scheme, we can see it gives us the RGB colors here of 0, 174, and 239. So I could put 0, 134, and, 174. See, I can't even remember. Okay, and there's our UNICEF blue. What if I do this? If I pull this over here and bring the palette here. And then let's quickly just put these other colors in here. Great, so I've now put all of the RGB values from this UNICEF secondary palette and primary color palette into this template. And you can see that as I updated the RGB values, it updated what those colors look like. And then it's given me a range of shades and tints for each of those colors. So then if we actually wanted to create a pie chart with those colors, we could just grab those RGB values and insert them and we're good to go. So for example, here we have this. If I wanted to shift this color, then I could just say more colors, and then I could input this UNICEF blue here. So this would just be the main color. So we'll say okay for that. And then for this other piece, we'll actually then choose maybe a 40 or 60%, maybe 50%. So let's go with this 50% line. So 128, 215, whoops. And 247. Okay, so that's given me just a tint of the main UNICEF blue that it's given me there. So you can just see how easy that is to kind of get that look and feel automatically of just taking that one color and then having a tint or shade that I can kind of make something that's already in my brand colors, but it's very easy. I already have the RGB value kind of figured out for me, and it's just super simple. So this was especially useful for me, especially when I was doing dashboards and maps, because I just was creating a ton of them and just needed various shades of the same colors, and I was always calculating RGB values and looking up and trying to find good ones. So this is just what I've used now all the time. Every time I work with data visuals, I just use this all the time. So one thing you might want to look out for is when you're creating, say, a pie chart, or especially polygons on a map, if you're coloring those differently, choose tints and colors that are kind of a few percentages away from one another. So on a map, you know, if you chose 70% and 60% and sat them next to one another, it's going to be very difficult to tell which one is which. So based on if you're comparing the legend to your map. So what you might want to do is maybe choose 70% and then skip a few and choose like 30% and then maybe 100% and then maybe 70% and 30% up here or something. So, you know, just maximum probably try to go 3, 4, 5 colors from within that color ramp. Don't try to put them too close together. Now, feel free to download this template and then customize it and use it and make it your own. So I'm just going to show you 5 ways that you could actually use this and customize it a little bit further. So obviously the very first way is change these RGB values to make them your own brand colors. So find whatever color palette you use for your organization, plug the RGB values in there and kind of create your own color ramps. The second way is you can actually name these colors. So we're going to call this the UN blue. And you can see that actually, instead of color number 1, this is then updated to UN blue. So the third way you can really customize this, obviously I've kind of put in 5 colors here, but what if you have 6 colors? So insert a line if you have another color. So let's call this color number 6. Okay, so if you copy this color and copy it down, you can see that there's just this little formula in there, so it calculates that red right there immediately. Okay, and then of course we want a ramp. So this is, if we copy these columns and then insert it, and then let's just, this equals this here. Okay, and then if we put our cursor up here, it will actually show. So this is R. So these formulas are all linked. G and B. Okay, so you can see that this formula is just taking this B and calculating or multiplying it by 10% in the shades, okay? So these are the shades, and I'm just going to drag this down. Okay. Now, once you get to the tints, so these are the 10 to 90 down here, the formula changes a little bit. So you can see here, we just then want to drag that over to the R, so you can see and then we want to drag this over to the G, and then we want to drag this one over to the B. Okay, so that formula is a little bit different, so that's why we have to do that again. Drag that down, and actually we then have this entire color ramp over here. Looks like my border just got messed up a little bit, so let's just add a thick border, and yeah, it's totally customized to add one more color. Now, of course, if there are too many colors, like if you only have 3 colors, for example, you could then just delete, or you could hide them. Let's hide them if maybe you just want to have something or a color palette that only has 3 color ramps. So definitely just customize it that way for yourself. And then the 5th way you can customize this is, I've obviously put these at 10% intervals, but what if you wanted to try something different? So what if you wanted 75% or 11% in the middle there? You can do whatever you want with the percentages. Feel free to change them if you want them to go up or down by 5% or anything. Basically, the way that it's creating these color ramps is with a couple of different formulas and functions. So if you press Alt and F11, it will just open up this Microsoft Visual Basic for applications, this VBA background. And you can see that I've actually just created a function that is customized. So it's a user-defined function. Okay, so I've written that in the background, and all that does is when we put that function into this cell, so I've named it myRGB, and then I've said B2 is the R, C2 is the G, and D2 is the B. Okay, so the function shows the RGB values. When I enter that, it will make the cell the color of those 3 values. Okay, so that's how all of these are colored automatically. And then the R, G, and B, you can see all have a formula that are based on these percentages of black and white being added and based on the original RGB values that we entered at the top. So that's actually how it works. If you want to find that function, if you go to Formulas and you go to Insert Function, and you can come to where it says select a category. There are lots of categories, and all the way at the bottom you can see, well, not all the way at the bottom, but there you can see user defined, and that's where you can see that my RGB value. So that's where that is. So that's kind of how the sheet works. And I just want to make one shout out to this website. So it's a Stack Overflow website, and this was actually where I got the function, the written function here, where I created that in Excel. So I just want to kind of show that to you so you can go check it out for yourself if you want to create it for yourself. That's kind of how I did it, but I just applied it in kind of a little bit of a different way and combined it with those RGB formulas. And before we end, just one other way that you can actually customize a color palette. So if we kind of unhide everything here. If you are in Excel and you want to actually create your own custom palette, you can come here to colors and customize colors, and it will just open a text box which will allow you, or a dialog box which will allow you to kind of create your own palette. So here, if we want to say our different colors, so let's do this quickly. Okay, so I've named that the UNICEF palette, and if I just click save, and then if you're in page layout and go to custom, you can actually see that the UNICEF palette is there. And so that will actually just allow you to very quickly, like if you go to home and you want to color something, it's then got that UNICEF palette there with all of these kind of various tints and shades of that color. So that's also another way that you can kind of create something like this if you're in Excel or Word in a Microsoft Office environment. So again, if you're creating maps, or if you're creating visuals such as pie charts or bar charts that need kind of various shades of the same color, then this is the tool to help you make it. I hope to see you next week for another video and resource, and I hope this was helpful. Please do let me know. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and go pick up your free download.